She claimed to know the owner for VIP access, but I've been the owner for the upscale fitness club with a spa that I run today in Los Angeles didn't begin with me. It goes all the way back to my grandparents. They were originally from Italy and made the move to the United States in 1965. Back then, they didn't have much more than a couple of suitcases, a dream, and the kind of work ethic that never lets up. They started small, just a modest neighborhood gym, nothing fancy. It was the kind of place where you'd find old-school free weights, a few basic machines, and a punching bag in the corner. My dad used to say they ran that place like it was the Ritz, even though it was barely bigger than a two-car garage. My grandfather handled the training side, and my grandmother ran the front desk, the books, the locker rooms, and probably everything else no one wanted to deal with. They didn't have any employees at first. Just them. 6 days a week. Open to close. As the neighborhood changed and the years went on, their little gym started getting a reputation. People came not just to work out but because my grandparents treated them like family. You walked in that door and they knew your name, your kids' names, and probably what your cholesterol numbers looked like too. When my parents took over in the 1980s, they saw potential beyond the single location. My dad had a sharp business mind, and my mom, just like her mother-in-law, knew how to create a space that people wanted to come back to. They were the ones who took that single gym and transformed it into something much bigger. Over time, they turned it into a full-blown chain of premium fitness clubs. High-end equipment, spa services, personal trainers, nutritionists, the works. They upgraded the original space too, keeping some of the old charm but bringing in the sleek, modern look you see in most luxury clubs today. By the time I was a teenager, the company had several locations around Southern California. I remember tagging along with my dad to meetings or following my mom as she walked through the spa area making sure everything looked and smelled just right. About 15 years ago, I inherited the main facility in Los Angeles, the one where it all started. My parents handed me the reins, and I've been running it ever since. When I inherited the main facility in Los Angeles about 15 years ago, I knew right away that I didn't want to just maintain what was already there. I wanted to take it to a whole new level. The club had strong roots, a great reputation, and a loyal base of longtime members, but I saw a bigger vision. I wanted to modernize the entire space and create something that felt both exclusive and forward-thinking. So I started from the ground up and completely rebuilt the club. I brought in a team to help redesign the interior, focusing on creative and modern aesthetics that still respected the history of the place but gave it a brand new energy. One of my main goals was to expand the wellness area. I didn't want it to be just a gym with weights and treadmills. I wanted it to be a complete experience. We added more spa treatments, upgraded the massage rooms, brought in hydrotherapy options, and created spaces where people could relax and recharge in style. The gym itself got a full overhaul. We installed state-of-the-art equipment and built an entire section dedicated to virtual trainers. That meant members could work out with custom AI-based programs or follow guided workouts from top trainers anytime they wanted, day or night. To build excitement and bring in a fresh crowd, I started reaching out to bloggers and influencers. We ran targeted promotions, invited them to experience the new features, and let their followers see what we were offering. It didn't take long before the buzz started to build. Word spread fast, and pretty soon the club started becoming a hot spot not just for locals, but for celebrities, athletes, and other high-profile guests who wanted privacy and premium service without having to compromise on quality. One of the features that really set us apart was the VIP lounge. We added a private pool and sauna area that's only accessible through special booking. It's become so popular that now, if someone wants to use that space, they have to book it at least 7 months in advance. One evening, just as the staff was starting to wind down the check-in area and prepare for the final appointments of the day, a group of 6 women walked into the club without a reservation. 5 of them looked to be around 28 to 30 years old, dressed in trendy workout and loungewear, clearly ready for a night of pampering. The 6th woman, who appeared to be the leader of the group, looked a little older, probably around 36. She walked with confidence straight up to the front desk, glanced briefly around the lobby, and then leaned in slightly with a polished smile. She introduced herself as Cindy and told the receptionist that she was personally acquainted with the owner. With an air of entitlement, she added that she and her friends were there for an exclusive evening of relaxation and requested access to the VIP room. Her tone made it sound like this was something that should have already been arranged, as if her presence alone should guarantee entry. In reality, I was standing just a few feet away from the desk the entire time, wearing a plain zip-up jacket and jeans, watching the situation unfold. Cindy had no idea she was speaking in front of the very person she claimed to know so well. I decided not to reveal who I was. There was no point in creating a scene, and honestly, I was curious to see how far she would take it. So I nodded and stepped forward casually, telling the receptionist that it was fine and that we could accommodate them for the evening. I said it in a calm, professional tone, as if I were just another staff member with the authority to make that call. Cindy didn't even glance at me twice, too busy chatting with her friends and taking selfies in the lobby mirror. I led them to one of our VIP wellness areas, the kind usually booked out months in advance. It had everything they were expecting and more. A private sauna, full aromatherapy setup, a salt room with reclining loungers, and a floating therapy pool that offered complete silence and sensory relaxation. Before they settled in, I let them know that, as a courtesy of the club, the first 3 spa treatments of their choosing were completely covered, and they'd also be served our signature smoothies, freshly made and tailored to their preferences. Cindy looked pleased, acting like she had something to do with the generosity. Then I asked her politely for her credit card and ID, explaining that it was required, for security purposes, as always in elite areas. She handed them over without question, still completely unaware that the man standing in front of her was the same owner she claimed to be personally acquainted with. As soon as the women settled into the VIP area, they wasted no time ordering the most expensive services on the menu. Without even glancing at the price list, they asked for gold dust massages, full-body black caviar wraps, and individual sessions in the regeneration capsules that cost over $750 each. They behaved like they had done this 100 times before, acting like they owned the place. Every time a staff member walked by, one of them would snap their fingers or wave them over like a servant. They ordered round after round of organic cocktails, each one costing $95 a glass, and didn't hesitate to ask for special blends or extra garnishes just to make the drinks look better in photos. Their phones were out the entire time, and it was obvious they were doing it all for social media. They posed in towels, lounged dramatically by the edge of the floating pool, and made sure every treatment was documented with just the right filter and angle for their feed. The phrase "photo shoots for the Insta" came up more than once, and they weren't even subtle about it. What bothered me more than the luxury they were indulging in was how they treated the staff. It wasn't just entitled behavior, it was outright disrespect. One of them looked a personal trainer in the eye and said, "You're just a trainer, right? That's such a loser job." Another told a massage therapist, "I can't believe people like you actually choose this for a living. This kind of life is for people who have no ambition." They rolled their eyes, made mocking faces behind the employees' backs, and laughed loudly every time one of them tried to remain polite under pressure. The atmosphere became tense, but my team stayed professional, even as they were being humiliated by women who clearly thought their money made them royalty. By the end of the evening, each of the 6 women had racked up more than $1,100 in services. Between the luxury treatments, the specialty drinks, and the exclusive use of the regeneration capsules, the total bill came out to $6,894.27. When the front desk staff presented the invoice, Cindy's expression changed instantly. She looked down at the total, then back up, her eyes wide with disbelief. She stepped back from the counter and said there must be some mistake. Her voice got louder as she insisted that she was personally invited by the owner and that this entire evening was supposed to be complimentary. She stormed off to the locker room and spent a few minutes on her phone, then marched back holding it up like it was evidence. She said she had just received a message from the club owner confirming the night was free of charge. She even showed me the screen, where a short text from an unsaved number read something vague about covering all costs. I glanced at the phone and calmly said, "This is not my number, but you can call him if you're so sure." Cindy froze for a second, then her face twisted into frustration. She raised her voice, accusing the staff of trying to scam her and saying that she would never have come if she knew she'd be charged for anything. She began screaming, drawing attention from a few guests still in the lounge area. That's when I decided it was enough. I stepped forward, looked her straight in the eye, and said clearly, "I am the owner. And this is the first time I've seen you here." I didn't raise my voice, but I made it clear that I wasn't going to let this slide. I looked at Cindy and said, "You have 2 options. Either you pay the full amount now or I call the police. We have your access bracelet, your ID, and your credit card on file. Everything is recorded for security purposes, including your agreement to the services." She went pale and started to cry, but the performance wasn't going to change anything. Slowly, with shaking hands, she signed the check. Her friends, who had been laughing and posing for photos just an hour before, suddenly got quiet. One of them opened her purse, and a couple others pulled out their phones and wallets. Together, they managed to scrape together just over $400 in cash, which they handed to Cindy with awkward glances and mumbled apologies. She added it to her payment, still wiping tears from her face, but said nothing more as they left. 4 days later, her father came into the club. He didn't call first or make an appointment. Just walked in, clearly angry, demanding to speak with whoever had humiliated his daughter. I brought him to my office and showed him the full security footage from the VIP area. The video had both audio and video, something all guests are notified about when they check in. He watched silently as his daughter insulted the staff, bragged about knowing the owner, and signed off on every treatment without hesitation. When the video ended, he sat back in the chair, speechless for a moment, then looked at me and said nothing. He stood up, stormed out of the office, and as he passed the reception area, he turned his anger not toward us, but straight into his phone. From the tone of his voice, there was no question who he was yelling at. After everything was settled, I decided to hang a copy of the receipt in a simple frame near the reception desk of the VIP area. It wasn't about shaming anyone by name, there were no personal details on it, but it served as a quiet reminder of what had happened that night. The total was clearly visible, along with the full list of luxury services and add-ons, all itemized down to the last cent. Most guests just glanced at it in passing, but a few regulars who knew the story smiled when they saw it. The club didn't lose anything from the situation. That specific VIP area is usually empty unless it's booked in advance, so no paying clients were turned away that evening. The free treatments I had offered in the beginning were more than balanced out by the expensive services they chose and the premium drinks they ordered. In the end, every dollar was accounted for, and the staff got tipped well after the payment was processed. To me, the whole incident reinforced one simple truth. Don't pretend to be someone you're not, especially when you're standing in front of someone who actually controls everything.